Hello, Rush fans. Welcome to this episode of Rush Roundtable, episode number 89. On this episode, we are talking about top-heavy Rush albums. Albums that have a handful of fantastic tracks, and then a handful of tracks that just kind of fall short. Let us know what you think in the comments, and let us know some albums that you think are also top-heavy. Enjoy! Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Rush Roundtable. Today, we are talking top-heavy albums. So, of course, the definition of top-heavy is something that's too heavy at the top and therefore likely to fall over. That's just what I pulled up here. And in terms of Rush albums, something that's top-heavy would be you've got a few standout tracks at the top of the album, and the rest of the album kind of falls flat, or the rest of the album never got radio play, or however we've interpreted it. We will explain it as we go through. So I'm going to start, and the album that I chose that I think is really top heavy from both a radio play perspective and a personal perspective in a way is Signals. Why do I think this album is top heavy? It starts off with Subdivisions, which is, of course, hugely beloved track. I mean, it relates to just about all of us as Rush fans. The Analog Kid. Everybody loves the Analog Kid, right? That guitar solo live is absolutely killer. Just an absolutely awesome track. Chemistry, I think, is a fun track. Lyrics by all three members of the band. Last time that ever happened. I think that's pretty sweet. Digital Man is an absolute banger. Gotta love Digital Man. And then The Weapon. I mean, it's part of the Fear trilogy. Count Floyd intro on Grace Under Pressure hasn't been played live since, I don't think, at least since the 80s. And then New World Man, which is, of course, you can hear it on the radio all the time, at least where I am. Now, the bottom, so I think it's like almost really top heavy, because the bottom two tracks, Losing It and Countdown, Losing It is, of course, slower. It was never played live until R40. I guess you could say the band probably almost forgot about it, it seems, until R40. And then it ends with Countdown, which is a cool song, but I think it's a very lackluster ending track, a very lackluster closing track. And, you know, I think just Signals could have been okay without it. But I think the first six tracks are absolute bangers and fantastic songs. And the bottom two never really got airplay. And now, from a personal perspective, I am not a fan of New World Man, so the first five tracks would be top heavy for me from a personal perspective, and the bottom three would fall flat for me personally. So either way, however you weigh it, the first five or six songs on Signals are awesome, and then the bottom two kind of just fall flat. Not saying they're bad tracks. Losing It, Countdown, I like them more than, you know, handful of other Rush tracks, but in terms of Signals, I think those two fall flat. So tell me what you think. Do you guys agree with that or disagree with that?
I very much agree with that, especially once you get to Losing It. It has that huge electric violin piece. And when everyone says, when I think of Rush, it's the three of them and not really the violin's never mentioned. No one ever goes out of the way to be like, yeah, that one Losing It song, best song. No one ever says that. Along with, I had once heard criticism about when Rush was doing the Clockwork Angels tour and they brought the orchestra with them, that they didn't like that because to them that wasn't Rush. Rush is Geddy, Neil, and Alex, not Geddy, Neil, Alex, and the orchestra. So I think that's a very valid point. And along with Countdown, it's kind of like, you know, you just got done listening to all those heavy tracks of, you know, Subdivisions through New World Man. It's a lot. It in a way, getting kind of quoting Chemistry, you're listening to science. There's times where it's like I listen to these prog bands. I'm like, okay, I've had enough. I just need some AC/DC to try to level this out, But yeah, that I definitely agree with what you're saying, Ryan.
Yeah, I think the bottom two tracks are not like the others.
Yeah,
they're just
exactly. I
vastly
totally agree.
different from the first six. And yeah, to your point, yeah, losing it has the violin on there, and Countdown has NASA playing in the background. So they're just vastly different than the other six tracks. So yeah.
Yeah, most of their albums sort of have a theme going on, right? If you look at Roll the Bones, it's about chance, and then all the songs fit into that. But just as you said with Subdivisions, two of those are not like the other things at all.
Right.
So they almost don't fit a theme in a way.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, I'll turn it over to Mike.
Sure. So I picked Test for Echo as an album that's really, really top heavy for me. Obviously, you have the opening track of Test for Echo along with Driven. Driven is obviously, I think, became a really big hit during the Rush and Rio era of Rush, just because of how heavy it was, that getting the bass solo. It was huge. And then when I find listening, I like Half the World. I like The Color of Right. I love how heavy Time and Motion is. And I would say about there, I kind of start losing interest. I mean, not that Totem is like the tipping point, but I definitely think it's the start of the come down of the Rush high that I think we feel as we're listening to these records. It's like they talk about, driven, it's my turn to drive, and now these opportunities are now in front of you, and now we're singing about dog years. I think it's a very different dynamic between, Half the World and How the World Thinks, and now we're talking about how things are being sent through a modem, and talking about virtuality. I think they're just very different things. I will say, following virtuality is Resist, and I think Resist is some of the best lyrics Neil has ever done throughout the entire discography. So I definitely think that's a redeeming moment for the record. But after Resist, it's like you have Limbo as an instrumental, which I'm not sure how live it's ever been played, but what I will say, it's not YYZ, it's not La Via. So is it a big, factor in their instrumental stuff? It's not Leave That Thing Alone or, Where's My Thing? And then Carve Away the Stone. By the time we hit there, it's like, okay, I'm pretty good on this record. I think if Phil, I actually don't hate this record as much as I'm saying it, but I'm like, it's not Driven. But I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on it.
Yeah, I remember Driven is one of my favorite songs off that album, and I always think about it because when I first saw the video for Driven, I thought, what a crazy video.
Yeah.
Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a really bizarre video. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, it sort of falls off there toward the end, 100%. And like I said, that would have been my second pick.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I totally understand the argument. For me, I think Test for Echo absolutely rocks. I love Test for Echo. From even Totem, Dog Years, Virtuality, I mean, I just get so hyped for all three, even Dog Years. Like, Virtuality's got such a heavy guitar riff at the beginning, and Totem, I just love Totem. That's probably my favorite track from the record. But I totally understand the argument. I can see why you think that this record's top heavy. I don't know where it splits. Well, actually, on vinyl, I think it's Test for Echo, Driven, Half the World, and then I think it's.
Is that a double LP?
No, I think it's three. So I think it's The Color, Right Time and Motion, Totem, and Dog Years, and then Virtuality, Resist, Limbo, and Cover. I think it's three, and I think side one is Test for Echo, Driven, and Half the World. I could be wrong, but I could see whatever just side one is on the. I know it's three parts, but whatever side one is, being the reason why it's just top heavy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say, for Half the World, that's one of my favorite Rush songs outside of any album.
Mhm.
I guess just the lyrics, I love the lyrics in it. But I don't remember that getting radio play. I mean, I always think when we talk about something being top heavy, how many of the songs really got radio play?
That's true.
Right, exactly.
That's very true.
I feel like it was a song that was kind of meant to have radio play, because think of it, it's a 3-minute song. It's somewhat catchy.
Which one?
Yeah,
Half the World?
but it was just overshadowed by the first 2 tracks, especially Driven.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Good choice. All right, Pat.
All right. So my album, I actually went with Moving Pictures. And this is kind of how I feel, but also in a general sense. When you take the album, the first 4 tracks they could stand on their own for the whole catalog. Like, you could delete everything else. Take those 4 songs. Take those 4 songs.
His phone is top heavy too.
Yeah, my phone is very top heavy, unfortunately. Good one, Ryan. But seriously, take those 4 songs, and they're just that defines Rush on the album. That defines them really. And you could kind of forget about everything else, and that's why it leaves Camera Eye, Witch Hunt, and Vital Signs in the dust. You could literally split that album in half, and the first 4 just that's really it, But that doesn't obviously take away the fact that the last 3 songs are, not great. Like, I think they're all great. But yeah, in terms of the radio, especially, you're not going to hear the Camera Eye. You're going to hear an 11-minute song, and then the next 2, those are more fan favorites. And even YYZ, that's not on the greatest hits album and everything, but that's just because it's an instrumental. But people argue, La Villa, but YYZ, that's their most, in pop culture, that's the instrumental that you're gonna hear. So you stack that on with Tom Sawyer, everybody knows Tom Sawyer, everybody knows Limelight, those 2 songs, and then Red Barchetta, that's a hit too. I'd say it's a tier below the other 2 ones. But it's still a hit. And then take those 4, and you got extremely top heavy first half of that vinyl. And I feel like the other side, on the average fan, I feel like the other side of the vinyl was pretty dusty. We'll say, was not being used. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely agree. I remember when I was first getting into Rush and I bought Moving Pictures. I believe it or not, I was listening to Tom Sawyer, skipping Red Barchetta, and then going straight to YYZ and then Limelight. And then over time, it's like, all right, I'll just let the album play. Then I started getting into Red Barchetta, which then linked those 2 sides. And then I remember feeling like the Camera Eye was just dragging at first, but then as I'd get more into the band, I understand growing up, I get it now. I understand why it has to be so long. And then Witch Hunt definitely is on the back burner, but you're right, it stands no chance compared to Limelight and Tom Sawyer and YYZ. But that song is just absolutely wonderful to hear live. I remember hearing on the Time Machine tour. And also Vital Signs, once again, I really feel like if people have the patience to get through it, those songs are worth it. But you're right, it's super top heavy compared to the radio hits that it has.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. And in terms of radio play, I mean, Tom Sawyer and Limelight are arguably their 2 most popular radio friendly songs. I mean, maybe Closer to the Heart or The Spirit of Radio, but
Radio.
those are probably the big 4. But yeah, I would agree. I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, I think Vital Signs and Camera Eye, just the length is one of the reasons they never got radio play. I'm trying to think how long Vital Signs is, but I know Camera Eye is a very lengthy song.
Yeah, Camera Eye is 10 minutes. I think Vital Signs 4 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Witch Hunt is not very long at all. Witch Hunt is only, I think, 3 or 4 minutes. I can pull it up here. Camera Eye is 10 minutes and 58 seconds. Witch Hunt's longer than I thought. 4 minutes and 46 seconds, and Vital Signs is 4 minutes and 46 seconds. So they're both the same length. But Witch Hunt almost has like a minute intro of just the mob, and which I think is the guys screaming, for that part. But yeah, that I would assume that's why that never got any radio plays. It's just a whole minute of that. Yeah, I would agree. All right, Mark, go ahead.
Okay, this was a tough one. I had a little pre-conversation with Ryan about this, but I went with my gut feeling on it. So I'm going to choose Caress of Steel. And, just a little history about me being a Rush fan. I heard songs on the radio. Probably, Permanent Waves was one of the first big albums I loved. And after that, I went back and bought everything they had before. I'm sure some of you guys did the same thing. So I got to Caress of Steel, and early on, I just didn't get it. It's kind of like when they talked about this album on the documentary that they did. What was it called? Beyond the Lighted Stage. They talked about letting the members of Kiss listen to the album, and they said, "Hey, we just sort of didn't get it." But I really did like Lakeside Park and Bastille Day, and it turns out those two songs got radio play. They're probably not anywhere close to the pantheon of Rush's greatest hits, but I enjoy them. And I came later to appreciate this album because I used it in the gym. I started out, with Fountain because it's a long song. I would ride the elliptical and listen to Fountain while doing my elliptical workout, and eventually worked up to being able to listen to the entire album while I was doing my elliptical workout. So the more I listened to the songs, the more I came to appreciate them. But this one just seems the definition of top heavy to me because you've got two songs that completely stand out, with Lakeside Park and Bastille Day from all, the others. Fountain and Necromancer are epic songs. They're long. I think one of them's 20 minutes. The other one's like 12 or 13 minutes long.
Yep.
And then, I think I'm Going Bald is on there. So that wasn't going to get radio play.
Yeah. I mean, I almost feel like this one is bottom heavy in terms of just song length.
Right.
With 12-minute Necromancer and 20-minute Fountain. But yeah, I can see that. In terms of their lengthier songs, anything over like 8 minutes, I feel like those two are probably bottom of the barrel in terms of epics or whatever you want to call them. So I can agree with that.
Yeah, the other albums I thought about were, my second pick is Michael's first pick, which was Test for Echo, and then, from there it was just hard. I love all the other albums too much. It was just too hard to pick, almost
Sure.
anything.
So I thought it would be cool to go around one more time, around the round table one more time, and give a personal top heavy. So like, not necessarily in terms of at the top of the album has a bunch of great songs or anything like that from a personal perspective, but an album that has a handful of songs that you absolutely adore, and then some songs that you personally think fall flat, or you skip, or you just think are stinkers, or whatever. So why don't we do it? I'll start. For me, from a personal perspective, I think the most top heavy song is Presto, or rather album is Presto. And the reason I say that is because there's about 4 songs on this record that I absolutely love, and they are The Pass, War Paint, the title track Presto, and Available Light. Absolutely adore those 4 tracks. I will listen to them as much as I will listen to any other Rush. And then there's Red Tide, that's just kind of there. I sometimes I enjoy it, sometimes I skip it. But the rest of the songs, for me, from a personal perspective, just fall flat. I don't enjoy them that much. They would be Show Don't Tell, Chain Lightning, Scars, Superconductor, Anagram, and Hand Over Fist. Just not fans of them. I don't think they're not like bottom of the barrel in terms of Rush songs for me. There's a lot worse, but there's a drastic difference in terms of preference from the first 4 songs that I named and then the remaining songs. So for me, Presto's kind of top heavy from a personal perspective. So.
All right. Honestly, when you said to pick a second album in terms of like being top heavy, the first one that actually came to my mind, and I love this record. I love both sides of it, but it's top heavy. There's no way to get around it. It's 2112. You open up that first side of the title track. That isn't just a snack. That's a 3-course meal of a song and of a side. Like, that is gourmet dinner. You're there, and after you get done, you might need to digest before you start thinking about Passage to Bangkok. There's no two ways about it. It's a drive. It is what it is. In a way, like, I listened to 2112, and I taught myself, or I was taught as a kid, to play the whole 2112 track on bass. And it's like, I only really listen to it if I'm practicing it. I never sit there and I do overture, I do temples, and bam, I'm off, usually. If I want to actually listen to the rest of the album. And then in terms of, the other tracks, I like Passage to Bangkok. I think Twilight Zone is cool. Lessons is okay. I kind of get early Rush vibes from like Lesson. Very much self-titled Rush vibes. And then Tears, to me, I'm like, I don't know what it is about Tears. Like, yeah, I know Lee wrote the lyrics, but I don't know. It just doesn't click for the rest of the album. But then Something for Nothing is always just a nice pick-me-up to end the record, though. But overall, I mean, that's top. That first title track, that's top heavy. It's just when you start off an album with a 20-minute piece, or even Hemispheres opening up with that huge 18-minute piece, it's like, it's a lot. Especially if you're going to take an average radio listener and be like, here's 20 minutes of nonstop action. So
is that from a personal perspective too? Like, I mean, like, do you just like really adore the title track, and then the rest of the side B is just kind of like,
yeah, I
okay
kind of
for
do.
you?
It's like, when I think of 2112, I'm thinking of 2112. I'm not really thinking of,
The
Twilight
rest of
Zone.
it, yeah.
Like, I listen to 2112 for 2112. I love that. I will sit there and I'll listen to the whole thing, as I'm playing on my guitar, whatever. But there are times where it's like, if I actually want to sit there and enjoy the rest of the album, I'm gonna, in a period of time, I'm gonna skip the 3 through 7 and get the Passage to Bangkok and actually listen to the rest of the record. But yeah, in my opinion, I think that is kind of a top heavy record. Especially when I first got into Rush, I was listening to Moving Pictures and Permanent Waves, and then all of a sudden, here's 20 minutes. It's like, that's, like I said, it feels like a 3-course meal. There's a lot happening.
I think a lot of people don't list 2112 as one of their, I don't know, we'll say top 5 albums from a personal perspective, and just from best albums perspective, because of how top heavy it is. Yeah, I've heard that quite a few times. All right, Pat, from a personal favorite perspective, what would be an album that might be kind of top heavy for you?
Personally, I'd have to go Paper Trail, and the only reason is that obviously, I love the whole album, but that 1-3 song of Vapor Trail, Secret Touch and Shine, like, that's like above my favorite, like, way like any other. Like, I love the beginning of it. I love a few songs here and there, or okay for me. But yeah,
you're kind of cutting in and out a little bit.
Yeah, track 9 are just the absolute best for me. They stand out so much.
Still cutting in and out.
Well,
I got what you were saying. Secret Touch and what'd you say? Vapor Trail, Secret Touch, and Earthshine. You absolutely love, and the rest of the album is just okay for you.
Yes.
All right.
Or it,
That-
that's and
Nope. I'm not picking up anything you're putting down right now, but that's all right.
Sign language.
Yeah.
only I knew.
Two flags. You can do some for it.
All right.
Alex, he'll voice post.
Nope. Still nothing. Signal transmitted, message not received. All right, but that's all right. We got the point. Mark.
All right, so I'm on the spot here because I thought about Test for Echo, but
Sure.
I'm going to move on to Snakes and Arrows.
Okay.
So this is a tough one because I like Snakes and Arrows a lot. But Far Cry was the radio hit off of Snakes and Arrows, and it's got 2 instrumentals on it, which is kind of an odd thing. I saw the story about them adding Malignant Narcissism right at the end. Because Raskulinets had secretly recorded Getty, playing with his fretless bass, and they sort of threw that extra instrumental on there. But yeah, some of the other songs are not as good to me as the main Monkey Business, Far Cry, Armor and Sword. Just love those 3 songs to death, But some of the rest of it not as good to me. It's a personal preference.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, that was a lot of fun. Viewers, please leave in the comments what you think. Is a top-heavy Rush album in terms of your subjective opinion, and also from a personal favorite perspective. Let us know what you think is top-heavy. Distinguish between them, if you will, please. But yeah, we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.